I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on this hang in the back backpack filter. It's been running for about 4 months now, so I wanted to give you an update as to how things are going, how it's running, break it open and see what everything looks like, and then kind of give my honest review as to if it's still worth your guys' time to get something like this or not. If you haven't seen the full video, I'll leave a card in the corner and I'll leave a link in the description down below as well. And let's go ahead and take this thing off and see what's inside and go from there. A quick note here before I get started is this was originally put on a 29 gallon. This filter is rated for around a 32 gallon fish tank, and I had to move this to the 40 gallon breeder because I stole my 29 gallon tank. But it should function and operate just as easy as being on the 29 gallon. And also I have this extra sponge filter in here when I originally installed this, so that way we have some beneficial bacteria to work around while I had this up and running at the same time. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing you see I did here is I did not use the skimmer option that you can put on the intake side of this filter, because personally I didn't like it. It never worked, and I've had similar Hygger products where they attach that skimmer option and I just don't use it because I never have problems with the top of my fish tanks, as you can see. Secondly is you can see there's obvious good water flow. The intake tube and these balls are circling around to make sure none of that debris gets trapped on this aluminum piece here. Nothing gets stuck on there. And then of course you have this that you can adjust. So if you wanted more aeration and bubbles, then you can do so accordingly, and it still works just the way as it should. So that's always nice. Another thing is the filter was sitting over here, so I had to shift it this way, and then I moved the sponge filter to over here, so that way I can show you guys the fish waste collector that's right here. All you gotta do is take this piece off, and you can attach a 1/2 inch hose to it. I don't have one unfortunately on hand, so I'm going to use a small bucket just to see what we get out of here. You can also use this as a water change system if need be. And all you got to do is move this thing horizontally from vertically to let the water drain out. So let's see what we get inside here. Yeah, it looks like we got a little bit of waste in here. Pretty convenient to be able to do that with this option, especially if you want to do a water change on like a smaller tank, and it gives you that option to be able to do so, which is nice, but convenient nonetheless. And just shut it off. Very nice to be able to have that option. I like it, and it worked swiftly, so that's good as well. Taking this telescoping tube off is just as simple as sliding it off there and removing it. And then you can also just slide this up and over and take that off, and then you just lift this whole unit up off of the tank. Alright, so let's go ahead and remove this tubing here. We'll go ahead and undo this. Take the tube off, push down on these clips, undo here, pull from the bottom and undo the top. Same with the other side here. You just undo that. Oh, and then we'll see what we got in here. We'll look at the impeller too while we're at it. And as far as the impeller goes, you have a screw here and a screw here. You just remove those, and then you just take this off like that. This is when you can do your maintenance on your impeller. Just use the screwdriver to pull this out. So you got a little bit of gunk here. We can probably rinse that out and put it back in, but it doesn't look too bad. Just a little bit of minor cleaning up here. And you also have this piece here that you can actually pull out as well. It's got a little bit of gunk on it as too, and that's just as easy as putting it back inside the middle here, and it'll stay put like that. And then these 4 screws here, if you really wanted to, you can inspect the motor, but the motor wasn't running hot and it's been running fine with no noise, so I don't believe it to be a necessary thing for me to do today. Alright, so we got our internals clean. We have the output clean on this side as well as this side right here. And then we also have our impeller nice and clean, so that'll just go in just as simple as that. And then we got our cap on, put our 2 screws on, and be good to go. Pretty easy. So let's move on to this guy. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and move this forward. Put this bin here because it's going to get a little messy. And remember, this filter goes through here first, and then it also goes through the bottom and then up through the top. So this top layer is where it last leaves before it goes back into the fish tank. Tray number 1. So not too bad. It's a little gunked up, but I decided to do it this way because Hygger gives you quite a few of these things, and the order they want you to do it in is add these filters down here. So instead I added one on the top before it leaves the tank. And then of course they have a ton of bio balls that they supply you with. So I did 2 trays for that. And then I did kind of like my own media here. So to get the real heavy detritus and stuff here. But I might actually rearrange this a little bit and replace it with some spare stuff that I have here too. But it really honestly isn't too bad. We can take a look at inside here too, that there's still a little bit of debris and detritus down the bottom. But we're going to go ahead and dump this out and clean that as well. One thing I forgot to mention too is in order to take this top piece off and empty this and clean this out, is all it takes is just unscrewing this bottom piece here, and you just lift this up. See how that worked? And that empties the water in here. And then you can take this off, and then you can kind of look at this and see if anything needs cleaned in here. So that wasn't too bad. Still pretty easy. And this tube also slides out as well. And then as far as this tube goes, you might have to put a fingernail or something underneath there, but this just pops off like this if you want to clean inside here. And then that way, if you want to actually clean this aluminum part as well, this is removed and you can clear any detritus or anything that's got trapped in here as well. And then if for some reason you want to replace some of these plastic balls that come with it, then you can do that as well and then put this back in. So let's do that now too. And the best way to clean this for me is I just use this wire brush here, especially get through like all like this spot here, and then to go all like around in here. And then what's also nice too is if you want to clean this as well, this just unscrews and you can just kind of feed it through here to clean that out. And then like I said, through here. And it's really, really easy, to be honest, to clean all this stuff out, especially with something like this. Alright, so this is all clean, and these balls are still in pretty good shape, so I'm going to reuse them. Good thing is Hygger does supply with a few extra balls, so that case if you lose some or some get used up, that they do give you a few extras to put in here. Alright, so we got our roundabout balls back in there. We got our aluminum piece all clean. Put that back on, slide this tube back in, and then we put our cap back on. It's as simple as that. And then we'll place it back on here and screw it on. So we got that on. We'll put this cap back on down here. We'll place this back on as well to secure the top. And then there's that. So over the course of 4 months, I really wanted to give you guys an in-depth look of how this filter looks on the inside and how to take everything apart. And it really isn't as intimidating as how it looks to begin with. And I really hope that this video helped you guys out a lot to really see how to do everything and how to maintain everything and put everything back together. And I really like the ease of access of how to take everything apart that Hygger does with these things, and to be able to get everything back in, with relative ease and not be so complicated. So just don't be intimidated by this thing, because it's not that hard. Now as far as the filtration goes, I wanted to do an update on this. These filter flosses they supply you with, remember this filter goes from in here through the bottom and then from bottom to the top and then back out to your tank. So what they only supply you with is a couple of these filter flosses. And I didn't like that personally because they wanted you to put that on the bottom and then supply with these bio balls and then go back out the top. And what I did differently is I put this on the top to go at the very end before it returns to the tank. And I did my own rendition of something like this that I bought at my local pet store. And this is not a bad sponge. You know, it did the job, but I feel like there was something a lot better that I can do with this. And if you guys remember, I did an update on an FX6 filter, and I really liked the response, and I really liked the outcome of how that has been going so far. So I happen to have some of these left over from my previous FX6 filter update, and I'll leave a card up in the corner of that as well as a description below on how I did that FX6. So I had some spares left over, and what I also have, Hygger also supplies like 3 bags of this bio balls, so it's pretty ridiculous. But I also have this fine sponge too that I never used. So as you can see already, I kind of cut to size with these trays, and that's what's great about these trays is you can customize these to however you want. So I'm going to just throw this away. I have one extra fine sponge here to use, and then I just cut these to size. And like I did with the FX6s, I'm going to put my first tray down below on the very bottom. I have my very coarse one on the bottom, and then I just sandwich these things together because they have these little bumps on them that you can just sandwich these things together and they go together pretty well. And what I'm going to do is my very first tray is going to be this very coarse sponge followed by a medium, and that just goes in right like this. And then I'm not even going to use this second tray of bio balls, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then what I've also done is I've done a second row of medium sponge, and then I cut to size this fine sponge, and that has the same bumps as the other two. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on my second tray right here and place this on top. And then I decided to go ahead and use at least one tray of these bio balls. So I'll put this on top of my other sponge filter media. And then last but not least, I'm going to continue to use this that they cut to size for your tray that Hygger gives you. And I'll just go ahead and put this on top, and then I'll put this cap on. So that way I cover all the bases for everything that I want. So that way I have my coarse, my medium, and then my fine sponge, and then my filter floss on top. So that way I have a full cycle from coarse to medium to fine, and then have my fine filter floss on top to clean everything up before it goes back into the tank. So I think that's a really good idea to put on this, and I really like how Hygger gives you these options to be able to have enough room to put enough sponge in here. If you guys think this is too much sponge in here and maybe I should switch it up, leave a comment down below and I will do that and consider your option in the next video, because I would like to do another step, or not a step 3, but a part 3 update to this. So that way I can give you guys another update on how things are going. And I have plenty of filter floss to put on top of here, so I'm not worried about running out of this stuff because I have everything that's cut to size. But yeah, that's how this is going to be done. I'll just place this back in here, fill this up with water, put this cap back on, put everything back on like it's supposed to, and then we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and fill this thing up with water, turn it on, and then we'll go back to the tank. Alright, the filter is filled with water, plugged in, and working as it should with all the new media installed. And I still personally went with the duckbill output just because of the fact that I personally don't like these, mainly because of the suction cups, but just because I would rather personally have a one output direction to go wherever you want as opposed to multiple, because a lot of times as filters get more clogged up that the output doesn't go all the way to the end of these holes. And I think personally that the output is also a lot better since I've done the maintenance on it. So if I adjust this here, the flow is looking a lot better. It has a lot better output. Now I know that I've obviously maintenance this thing, so there's not a whole lot of detritus and beneficial bacteria in here, so you're gonna have max flow out right now because of me doing the maintenance on it. But I'm really curious to see how this all pans out for the next few months with the new media, and if it still keeps this max flow out of here. And of course you can adjust it up here as well if need be to turn this back and forth to adjust the flow. But I like having this position where it's at, where the duck bill points it this way, bounces off the fish tank wall, and then goes toward the sponge filter, and then that sponge filter kind of moves everything over in this direction as well to go into that input right there. So I'm really happy how this turned out. I'm really hoping that my new media really makes this thing highly efficient and works to the max amount that it needs to. And I've really enjoyed this filter a lot. But let me give you my final thoughts again before we head out. So I really like this filter. I love how you can customize it to however you want, change things around. If something you don't like, you can take those out and make it to however you want. It's nice that, you know, once you break into everything, it's really not as intimidating as it looks. I feel like it's actually fairly easy to maintain within the impeller, getting through the internals, you know, within a 4-month period of looking through everything, using the water change and the waste remover. That's a breeze. You know, everything is just so relatively easy to be able to get into, to maintain, to do water changes, and to all around, you know, ease of access for everything you want for your filter needs. I don't know, I guess I'm kind of biased on this because I've had very good experience with this. It's probably my favorite filter that Hygger has still currently to this day. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have learned something today, and maybe I can get you guys to buy one of these because I truly like it, and I hope you guys do too. And that's the whole reason why I did a part 2 on this, because not only did a couple people request it for me, but I want to do an update to make you guys know that it's definitely worth the money and the time to look into this. And the customization is just endless, and the ease of access just between those 2 different items makes this filter a win-win for me. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time, and thanks for hanging out. Later.